Oh boy, the witch is back. That's me. She's here. She's here. Why are you so nervous? Tripods are not scary. Today we're just gonna have a casual little tarot chat. We're gonna do a tarot tour, what decks I have, what decks I recommend, and let's just jump into it. I will start by saying that I bought all my own decks. I know that there are a lot of people who practice this tradition that your deck should be gifted to you or given to you by someone else, by an elder, by someone else in the magical community. I personally do not follow that tradition, and I think it is okay if you do, and it's also okay if you don't. Even though I've been out for several years now, I don't really have a lot of friends in the magical or spiritual community because I'm a solitary witch. Even though I was into spooky stuff and witchy stuff, I did not have a connection to the magical community, and I was not out. And I was not in a position where that was accessible to me. If a particular deck calls to you, whether you're in a shop or at a friend's house and you see their deck and it's that they're not willing to give it to you, that might mean that that type of deck is the one that you should connect with spiritually. The decks that I work with, I was called to in a witch shop. The problem that I have is when other people try to invalidate people for not being gifted their deck. That feels very initiatory. It feels kind of almost gatekeeping. And I'm totally okay if that is the tradition that you want to follow or believe in, but that is not my personal path. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. Second thing is I only have one oracle deck. Mostly I work with tarot decks. The difference, if you don't know, tarot decks work with a generally traditional set of 78 cards for the most part, and they all have the same kind of meaning to them or attribution to each of the cards, whereas oracle decks can be as little cards or as many cards with a whole variety of different meanings to them. I only have one oracle deck and I will show you that one. But I mainly use this deck. It is the Smith-Waite Centennial deck. This is the one that's in all my pictures that people always say, what's that deck? It's beautiful. It looks a lot like the traditional Rider-Waite tarot deck, but the colors are kind of muted, and that it just really spoke to me. I also recommend that if you are starting tarot and you're starting to learn the traditional meanings of the tarot cards, if that is something that you are interested in doing, to work with one of the decks that has more traditional imagery, because I think that you'll be able to intuitively gather what the card means based off of the images. It'll also be easier for you to find resources on what this card means and why it's this way. So if you're just starting out and you want to get straight into just tarot, not oracle decks or anything like that, and you want to know the traditional meanings, I think that it's a great way to learn, even if it's not the deck that calls to you. Of course, you can just learn with whatever deck you want to use, but sometimes I find it's a little bit easier and people kind of resonate with it more. So this is the deck that I feel the most connected to and the one that I work with the most. I don't keep it in the box. I think that part of it is the box is starting to get worn out. I keep it in this little bag. In this little bag, I also keep my pendulums and this little amethyst skull. Sometimes I'll put some other rocks or tokens in there with my deck and carefully place my deck back in there. Just so that it's kind of accessible. It's usually actually just sitting out on my altar, but when I do put away, I put it in a little baggie. It also has a little string on it, so if I were to just go to a friend's house to do their tarot reading, I can just grab it and go. The other deck that I use sometimes is the Tattoo Tarot. I love tattoos, I love traditional tattoo art, and I just needed to have this one when I saw it. I think it's so cool. It's such a cool deck. It does have a lot of similar imagery on it. I'll put some card examples. I just really liked the way it looks. I don't use it as often, but sometimes when I just want to switch it up, I will use this one. I've had this one for forever and I don't remember buying it, and I don't know how long ago I've had it, and I have literally never used it. This is a novelty deck that I just don't mess with. I'm a horror fan, so the Zombie Tarot apparently spoke to me at some point in time, and it's just been sitting on my shelf for forever. I think it's cool to look at. I think that the cards are pretty. I like this kind of retro vibe mixed with zombies. I think it's a cool deck. It's a cool concept. I just don't use it very often. Maybe one day when I'm real into zombies. This one is going to expose me like a lot. This one's gonna expose me. It is gorgeous though, in my defense. This is the Arcana Tarot from the Nyx Hydra game Arcana, which, yes, it's a dating sim. I really liked it. I really enjoyed it. I liked the story, and they tie the tarot decks into the story. I am an Azra. He was my favorite story, maybe because it was the most involved with magic and tarot in the game. The story has a lot of tie-ins to the tarot deck and the major arcana in the tarot deck. I thought it was a cool story, and the cards especially were beautiful in the game. And then when I found out that it's a real deck, that they printed it, I needed it. I will say that I worry about using it on a regular basis because the cards feel a little bit thinner, and they're good quality. Like, there's this beautiful gold foiling on them. They're gorgeous, but I'm just a little worried that, like, if I used it on a regular basis, I would totally like shred one of these cards in half. This is great. It's a beautiful deck. I really enjoyed the game and the deck, and I needed it, so I bought it. And my only oracle deck is the Druid Plant Oracle. This is really cool. It was a gift. Actually, the only one that was a gift, but it was a Yule gift, I think, from one of my family members who are not witches. They just saw it and thought, oh, it's an oracle deck and it has to do with plants. So they bought it and gave it to me. The cards are huge. This is not your on-the-go oracle deck, but they each have a plant on it. And then in this actually huge booklet, it will say what that card means, what the association of each plant is in relation to what you're reading. I've only used it, I think, once. I really just like to look at the art on this. It really speaks to me on that level. I guess I haven't really spent enough time to connect with it. It also comes with this huge spread map. I think that's really cool. So if you're brand new to it and you want some spread ideas, it covers them in the little booklet, huge booklet. And it also has this to really map everything out for you. So those are all of my decks. In here, this little tarot box, I used to keep some tarot cards, but now I keep runes and also a bone throwing set in here that I created. I can do a whole other video on that if you want, but I don't really use runes as often, so I keep them in this little box. So those are my decks, and the other things that I will show you are, this is the book that I turned to, I think, the most recently for tarot meetings. I think it's a good way to learn the tarot cards. I like it personally. It's worked for me. I've got little flags in it for each of the suits and the major arcana. And then, yeah, this is one of my go-to, I think, resources. Of course, if you buy a tarot deck, you can always turn to the little booklet that's in there. I find that those don't often have like super detailed descriptions of them because it's such a little thing. It's like keywords. Some other resources are, of course, websites. The Biddy Tarot website is one of the ones that I turn to. The Labyrinthos and Golden Thread Tarot, there is an app, the Golden Thread app and the Labyrinthos Academy app. Both of them have tarot resources, and then they also have a website. If you have the app, you can actually open up to the website to get more detailed information on that card from the app. It's a nice on-the-go resource. The cool thing about having apps like that is also they have options to do virtual readings. So if you don't have access to getting a tarot deck right now, you can start there. You can do virtual readings for yourself on these apps. I am not sponsored, I just use them. Or if you're just out in the world and you want to do a reading for yourself, that's a way to do it. And then finally, I like to keep a tarot journal. This is my current one. It was a sketchbook that I glued a bunch of paper and stuff onto. I like to do reflections. What was the reading? What was the date? What are my interpretations of that? Kind of a journaling exercise so that I can write out my thoughts. It's a way for me to write down what I interpret with the spreads that I do. And then also I like that I can turn back to it later. I can be like, wait, didn't I get like a reading like a month ago? Especially if you're doing spell work with the moon phases or whatever it is, manifestations. You can also write down what those are in your tarot journal, and then what your readings are, and then you can refer back to them later. I think it's a nice little resource, reflection, and you can see how things are progressing for you. I also like to have that in case I get the same reading as I've already gotten. If I look at it and I go, ooh, that's familiar, I think I've seen this already, I can go back and try to get that message, remember what that was relating to then and what it's relating to now, if it's the same thing, if I'm just getting the same stuff all over again. Let's do some spreads. My favorite, of course, is just a daily single card for just what do I need to know today, what do I need to be aware of, what do I need to reflect on today. I often do a lot of tarot readings that are limited to 3 cards. I think that you can gather a lot of information from 3 cards. You can do past, present, future. You can do you, them, your relationship or circumstance. You can do you, your current path, and your potential. There are a lot of different things that you can do with just 3 cards. And sometimes when I'm doing 3 cards, I will pull one and I will look at it in relation to the other cards and I'll say, I have no idea what that is trying to tell me. I will then draw a clarifier card. Clarifier cards for me are me asking, can you clarify that like a little bit? And then sometimes it helps. Sometimes it helps. Oftentimes it helps. Of course, when you're doing drawings with multiple cards, you don't just want to look at a single card, you want to look at the image as a whole. Where are the similarities? Where are the differences? Are they all the same suit? Are they all the same number? Those will help you draw more information than just the card as a standalone message. Also, I know that there is a lot of pressure in the tarot world that you have to memorize all of these cards. If you have a vague base knowledge of what the core of each of the cards mean, or if you have access to a vague base knowledge of what the core of each of the cards mean, then you can use that to kind of pull enough information. It does not have to be the textbook definition of the card. It just means that you basically have a rough idea of what each of the cards mean so that you have enough information to draw on. But don't feel like you have to have like a whole book memorized of what each card means in detail. But for me, I still, when I feel stuck, I do return to resources when I'm looking at it going, I don't understand. I don't know what it's saying to me. I will go to a website or an app or a book for those resources. In addition to that, of course, I will do sometimes more elaborate tarot spreads for seasons or holidays, moon phases, such as a 4-card draw for each of the seasons, and then one which is the overall theme that is going to affect you. You could also do that for what theme is going to affect you for each week, and if there's going to be an overall theme for the whole month. There are a lot of options, and you don't just have to get card spreads from a book or from a resource. You can come up with your own if you have a specific question that you want to ask. You can come up with what you think you might get the most information out of. Sometimes the spreads get wild and their cards stacked on top of the other cards, and for a lot of people, doing the more detailed, elaborate spreads speaks to them more because they get a bigger picture with more detail in it. Those just kind of melts my brain a little bit. So particularly lately, I've got a lot going on, so I've just been keeping it simple as of late. So those are some of my go-to easy tarot spreads, especially if you're just starting out or if you feel a little rusty and you want to just get back into it a little bit. Those are really good ways to start out. So yeah, that's pretty much the video. That's it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed it, whether you got some tips or tarot inspiration, or if you just were entertained by it. I hope you liked it. That's the video, and I will see you in the next one. Guess who's back? Back again. Christy Witch. Tell your friends to subscribe to Are you offended? Me too. Just lay down and relax. I set this whole thing up so that they would be in my video. Marilyn.